For watching us tonight. The press at odds with the American public over the Second Amendment. That is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. First, I want to tell you a personal story. Back in the 1980s, when I was a correspondent at ABC News, there was a plane crash that killed the parents of a young girl. I was assigned to talk with the teenager to get so-called reaction, and I did my job. But the pain on her face was so intense that I vowed never again to interview a victim so soon after a tragedy. And I have kept that vow. This week, the media was all over the Navy Yard massacre in Washington. And some in the liberal press used the murders to advance their anti-gun agenda. Awful. But not only that, they were wrong in what they reported.
We are reporting here at CNN just this hour that an AR-15 used in some of those recent horrific mass shootings was used again in this one.
Sources say with that assault rifle, which we believe to be an AR-15, Alexis essentially was a sniper.
How does a guy walk into a facility like that with an AR-15, a double-barrel shotgun, and a handgun and go unnoticed?
The AR-15 that was used today was used in Newtown. It was used in Aurora. It's been used in almost all of the mass shootings in the last 2 years or so in America.
I don't know how that happens, but when the media erroneously reports something, instead of checking it out, some ideological politicians jump to exploit the fallacy.
A gunman appeared with an assault rifle, several other weapons. At the end of it, 12 innocent people died, another dozen or so seriously injured. How did he get these weapons into this Navy Yard? An assault rifle and other firearms?
Again, never happened. Senator Durbin wasn't alone. Other left-wing politicians seized upon the massacre to hammer home their anti-gun agenda. Here's how bad it really was. The New York Daily News ran a front-page headline which read, "Same gun, different sleigh," in reference to the Colorado theater shooting and the Sandy Hook massacre. But it wasn't the same gun. MSNBC made a big deal about the killer having an AR-15 semi-automatic weapon, but that was false. To be fair, Fox News also misreported the AR-15, but we didn't celebrate it. The Los Angeles Times reported that the killer engaged in a running gun battle with Navy security guards while carrying the AR-15, again false. Washington Post editorial board asked how the killer got the assault rifle into the Navy Yard, but he didn't do that. New York Times and CNN also referenced the AR-15 falsely. Now, everybody makes mistakes, but this was a coordinated effort, kind of a hysterical reaction. There's no question the American media is opposing the majority of Americans over the Second Amendment. And the reason is that most journalists live in secure places. Here in New York City, many press people live in high-rise apartment buildings, protected from intruders. But most Americans don't have the money to do that, so they must protect themselves. That's why the Founding Fathers put the Second Amendment into the Constitution, self-protection. Once again, when Americans lose their lives to violent crime, that situation should never, ever be exploited for political gain. And that's a memo. Now for the top story tonight, reaction. Joining us from Washington, Howard Kurtz, host of the brand new program here on the Fox News channel called Media Buzz. So where am I going wrong, Howard?
Well, Bill, you're obviously right that this was a terrible blunder by the mainstream media, including Fox, and that we have seen this too many times with mass shootings and mass tragedies where journalists take half-baked information from law enforcement sources, report it as fact, and then it turns out not to be true. But I don't think, and you're certainly right, that Piers Morgan at CNN and others are crusaders on the gun control issue, but I certainly don't think it's fair to say that all of the mainstream media is comprised of people who are anti-Second Amendment fanatics.
Are you kidding me, Howard? I mean, didn't you just not hear every major network, all right, all the newspapers? I mean, am I hallucinating here? They all jumped on the AR-15. They all linked it to Colorado and to Connecticut. All of them did the same thing. It was like one guy writing a script for all of them. And you're going to sit there and tell me that this isn't a coordinated effort?
If you are basing your reports on the erroneous information that there was an AR-15 assault weapon
But it's what they
used.
did with the information. You just referenced Fox made the mistake. But Fox didn't reference it that way. We weren't coming out going, this is outrage, another assault rifle involved in a mass killing. We didn't do that. We just said the report that the AR-15 was used. Now, yes, that was a mistake, but it wasn't seized upon to push an agenda. Surely you see the agenda.
Well, if a journalist asks, how in the world did Aaron Alexis get an automatic weapon into a protected military base?
That's a legitimate question, but it was always preferenced by, here we go again. All right, here's another rifle and a madman with a rifle. And the reason it was preferenced that way was to whip up feeling against the Second Amendment. Surely you know that.
I think many people in the press believe there should be a reasonable and robust debate about gun control. We saw that particularly after Newtown.
We've already had the debate, Howard.
We have had that debate.
And it's done.
President Obama and his side lost.
That's
right.
Is true. The debate has been had.
But
but they're not going to stop. Look, they did the same thing on gay marriage, and they won. Same thing. They won. All right?
They won
same
because
thing on
public
abortion.
opinion changed.
Same thing on abortion, and they won. But they didn't win on this, but they're not going to try to stop.
The debate has been about, and even Republican Senator Pat Toomey signed on to this, whether there should be limits on high-capacity magazines and background checks at gun shows.
And they
lost.
Yes,
they lost. But I don't think it's unreasonable to debate that as opposed to you're painting it as they don't want guns on the streets. I'm
painting it as an anti-Second Amendment play. That's what it is. Because they want to erode the Second Amendment down to, well, you can have this gun with this many bullets. This is what you can have, when everybody's circumstance is different. It's a lot easier not to have a gun in New York City if you have means, like I do, all right, than it is to be down in Harlingen, Texas on the border. Well, yet these people would have the same rules for everybody. Let the states do it.
But this notion that that journalists live in these protected areas, therefore they look at it differently than most Americans, that wouldn't be the case if you were in a movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, or if your kids went to school in Newtown, Connecticut.
That's not the psychology, Howard.
Nobody is safe from mass murderers
Howard,
and crazy people.
Let me ask you a personal question. You worked at the Washington Post for a long time, okay? If you took a little vote in the Washington Post newsroom, how many people would say the Second Amendment should be either outright abolished or there should be all kinds of restrictions? 90%? 85%? How many?
I think most people at the Washington Post and other news organizations would say there shouldn't be any interference with hunters or legitimate gun owning, but some of this assault weapons stuff
they define legitimate gun owning in a very narrow, restrictive way. And you know that. And you know they all have the same mindset, and they have the same mindset on gay marriage, abortion, on everything. And you're sitting there telling me that they didn't seize this yesterday as a way to advance their agenda. Do you really believe that?
Some commentators obviously seized it and politicized it, but you're an open-minded guy, and you seem to be saying that any discussion at all of any reasonable gun restrictions amounts to being anti-Second Amendment.
They exploited those mass killings yesterday for a political agenda. That's what they did. They did it all over the place. We proved our point. But I'm glad you came on with some dissent, because that's what we want here on the